Today we're gonna see another tutorial about JavaScript, and we're gonna create the Flappy Bird game using pure JavaScript. So this tutorial will be in two different parts. The first one will be about the logic of the game, and then the part 2 will be about writing the code. So we now go directly to write the code because we have to know the logic behind everything first. Now let's go and see the logic about the game. So here what we need in HTML5, all we need is to create our canvas, giving us an ID and then a width and a height. So in our web browser, in our page, we will get something like this. So here is the width and here is the height. Now everything else will created using JavaScript. To create games, we just have to draw images to the canvas continuously and changing their positions. So first we're gonna select our canvas using the document.getElementById of the canvas, and we don't have to write all this line every time. So we're gonna set this to a variable, and then using the getContext, that gives us a lot of methods and properties that gives us access to the canvas to write or to draw anything we want on the canvas. So we'll get the context of our canvas, and we set that to a variable setX context. So we won't have to write the line again. Now we have to load the images first. To load an image, we will say var. We will give the image a name, and then we will say new the object image. And then we have to give the image a source. So we will say image name that source src equals the image source, and for example images/image.png. And the same thing for the audio when we need to load an audio file. Now to draw an image, we will say setX.drawImage function. This function gets a lot of arguments, so we will just give it for now, for the example, just 5 arguments, which are the image name, its X position, its Y position, its width, and its height. Saying, for example, we have the bird image, then we give it 100 pixels for the X position and 150 pixels for the Y position, and its width is 50 pixels, the height is 50. So here in the left in our canvas we will get something like this. So this is the Y position, this is the X position, and this is the height, and this is the width. So our image will be right here. To move our bird here, we just have to change the values of Y and X positions. Now to draw our images to the canvas, we will use everything inside the function called draw. So the first thing I'm gonna draw is the background. So I'm gonna set the x.drawImage background, and I'm giving it an X position equals to 0 and the Y position equals to 0. And I'm not giving it a width and the height because I already set all the width and the height of images using Photoshop. So this line of code will give us something like this in our canvas, and then we will say setX.drawImage. Now we will draw the pipe north, and the pipe north has a pipe X position and a pipe Y position. So we'll get something like this. And for the pipe south, remember they have the same pipe X position, but for the pipe Y position we will add a constant to the pipe south. So we will get something like this, and this is the constant. So the constant here is the pipe height plus a gap. Now we're gonna draw a front ground. So the front ground has a 0 position and this Y position. So this is the canvas height, and this is the foreground height, and this is the canvas height minus the foreground height. So our foreground will be in this place. Now we're gonna draw our bird, Our bird has an X position and the Y position, so it will be here. Now we have to draw the images continuously, so for that we will use a callback function. So we will use the request animation frame. So this function here we call the draw function, then the draw function executes, then it calls the request animation frame again, then request animation frame call the draw function again, and so on. And this code will be run again and again and again. So we will have to call the draw function just once. Now, as you remember, this is the bird Y position. So our bird here will go down by the gravity. The gravity here is a number, and we increment the bird Y position by the number. And when our player press a K on the keyboard, the bird will goes up, so we will decrement the bird Y position. So in our code we will get something like this. So the bird Y, we will increment it by the gravity. The gravity may equal to 1 or 2 or 1.5. And on key down event we will decrement the Y position by 20, for example, and we can change it in our game. Now for our game we will need a lot of pipes. So for that we will set an array called pipe, and we will initiate this array with this coordinates. So the X position will be the canvas width and the Y position is 0. Now inside our draw function, beside the code we already typed, so we will use a for loop to loop all over the pipe array. So we will draw the pipe knot, and its position is the pipe of I.x, and its Y position is this. So we get for example the pipe knot right here, because the pipe 0, for example, .x have this X position, and the pipe 0.y will have a 0 position. And for the pipe south, it could be right here. Now to move our pipes, we will say pipe of I.x minus minus. So our pipe here will go from the right to the left, just like this. And now this is our canvas width. This is, for example, 188 pixels. So what I want to say here is when our pipe reaches this position, we have to add new coordinates to our pipe array. So we will say f the pipe I.x equals canvas.width minus 188, means when our pipe reaches this place, we have to push new coordinates to our pipe. Again, we will say x canvas the width, so we'll create our pipe just right here, and then we have to set a new Y position. So to set a new Y position here, different Y positions, we need to use the random function. So we will use the random and the math.floor. The math.random will give us a number between 0 and 1, and the math.floor will give us, or will return an integer. Now we need numbers between 0, so this is the maximum Y position, and minus the height of this pipe. So for that we will say we will multiply our math.random by the pipe north.height. So now we will get 0 if the math.random returns 0, and we will get the pipe north.height if the math.random returns 1. And then we say minus the pipe north.height. So in this case we will get numbers between 0 and minus the pipe height. And so then we'll get new pipes, for example, right here. And so on. When this pipes reaches this position, we will push new coordinates to our pipe array. Now let's set our game over rules. Remember, this is our bird x position, this is our bird y position, and this is our bird x position plus the bird down with it, and this is the bird y position plus bird down height. Now this is the pipe x position, and this is the pipe y position, and this is the pipe x position plus pipe down with it. Now this place is the pipe y position plus its height, and here is the pipe y position plus the constant, and here is the canvas.height minus the foreground.height. Now it's a game over f. For example, if our bird touches the front of the pipe, which means the bird x plus bird down with it is greater than or equal to the pipe x. So this is the first rule, and if our bird is in this place, and then if our bird x plus bird down with it is less than the pipe x plus the pipe down with it, and if in this case this is the bird y position is less than the pipe y plus pipe height, or for example in this case if the bird y plus bird height is greater than the pipe y plus the constant. And the last one we will see or if the bird y plus the bird dot height is greater than the canvas dot height minus the foreground dot height. So this is it for the game over rules. Now this is the end of the logic about the Flappy Bird game. Now let's go and write our code. Now guys, let's go and write our code. So in the description you will find the starter template, which has some images, the background image. This is its resolution, so will be our canvas, and the other images, and a fly.mp3 and the score.mp3, and then the index.html and the flappybird.js for our JavaScript code. I'm gonna run my file and I will create the canvas, giving it an ID, then a width and the height. So here is my canvas. Now I'm gonna link my HTML file to my JavaScript. I'll go now to my flappybird.js. I'm gonna test if it works, and yes. Now let's create our canvas variable to select the canvas, then the context, now we will load the images. So I create variables, different variables for every image. So I'm gonna create one for the bird and one for the background, one for the front ground, and then two for the pipe mouth and the pipes. So for all of them I will say equals the new the object image. So for each one, now I will give them a source, send.src equals, I'm gonna copy this, and the last one is for the pipe south. Now so I'm gonna say the images, so my folder images, then the bird.png. All my images are in the same directory. And the last one, I'm gonna check now if my images are loaded, and yes. Now we will draw our images. So we're gonna set a new function, draw. First I'm gonna draw the background. I'm gonna say text draw image. I'm giving it the background object, and then the X position and the Y position. And I'm gonna call the draw function. Now I'm gonna draw the pipe north and south. So select the draw image, so the pipe north. I'm gonna use some X and Y positions for now. Here's my pipe now, pipe south, and for the pipe south, we're gonna add the north pipe dot height plus the gap. So I'm gonna say just constant, and I'm gonna create some variables right here. I'm gonna say the var the constant here equals the pipe north dot height plus the gap, and the gap will set it to 70 or 75 pixels. I'm gonna copy this to the bottom, and now if I refresh, I will get my pipe south. I'm gonna set 80 for the gap, or 85. It looks great. Now let's go and draw the front ground. I'm gonna say text dot draw image, the foreground 0 and 0. Now if I say 0 and 0 for the Y position, it is at the top, so I'm going to say canvas.height minus the front ground.height, so it's in its place. Now I will draw the bird. I'm going to say, for example, 10 pixels for the X position and 150 for the Y position. Now we will change the X and Y position later, so I'm gonna say bird X for the X position and bird Y for the Y position. I'm gonna change them in my code, in this line. Now our bird will fall continuously because of the gravity. So we will say the bird Y plus the gravity. So we'll increment it by the gravity. So we will set the gravity to 1 for now. Let's refresh. Now the bird is not moving, so we have to request the animation frame for the draw function. Now the bird is falling. Cool. So the request animation here calls the draw, and the draw calls the request animation, and then it calls the draw again and again and again. Now let's go and now if our player hits or press OK on the keyboard, then the bird will move up. So we'll set a new function called move up. So the bird Y will decrement by 20, for example, for now. So if I hit or if I press OK, you see the bird goes up and then goes down by the gravity again. Now let's go and declare the pipe coordinates. It's an array as we saw before. So I'm gonna say var pipe equals an empty array, and then pipe of 0 equals, so I'm gonna give it an x coordinate, so the pipe will be there, and the y equals 0. Now we're gonna use a for loop to print or to draw all the pipes. I'm gonna copy this inside the loop, and I'm gonna change the x values with the pipe of I dot x. So this is the x position for every I in the pipe array. So the pipe north and the pipe south has the same positions for the x positions, and here is the y position. Now we'll say pipe of I minus minus to move the pipe to the left, to the left, yeah. Now my pipes are moving to the left. Now I have to add new pipes to my array, so I'm gonna say f the pipe of I dot x equals 125, for example. You can use whatever value you want. I will push a new object to my array pipe, so the x position is always canvassed out with it, and the y position here is a random position, so we'll use the math floor and the math random, multiply by the pipe north dot height minus the pipe north dot height, and here is the result. I have to change the gravity here, so I'm going to say 1.5 for the gravity and 25 for the move up function to make things easier. So that's good now. Now let's detect if there's a collision. So if there is a collision, we'll reload the page.
So if the bird x position plus its width is greater than or equal to the pipe of I plus x, and the bird x is less than or equal to the pipe of I dot x plus the pipe north width. And now it's checked that here's a collision, also a collision. Now we'll say end for the y positions. If the y position is less than the pipe dot y plus the height of the pipe, or the bird y is greater than or equal the height of the pipe plus its constant.
Now I'm gonna check that. Cool. But if I go through the gap, nothing happens. That's cool. Now when our bird hits the front ground, it's a game over also. So we'll say if the bird y plus the bird dot height is greater than or equal to canvas height minus the front ground height. So whenever it touches the front ground, it's a game over. Now if the pipe I the x equals a 5, we'll increment the score by 1. And we will go and print that to the canvas. So we're gonna give it a style, a color for our text, and a font size, and the font family, and then we're gonna use ctx.fillText to print the text to our canvas. So here we're giving it the text to show, a string, and then the x position, I'm gonna say 10, and then 20 for the y position. Now it's at the top, I'm gonna move it to the bottom. So I'm gonna say canvas height -20. Now it's at the bottom. Now the score increments 2, 3, up. It's a game over. Now let's add some sounds to the game. Let's first create the audio files. So I'm gonna save our fly. When our bird fly, we will make this sound, and when the score increment, we will use this sound. So I'm gonna give it the source of the files. So I'm gonna say sounds fly.mp3, and then for the score, it's score.mp3. So when I move up the bird, it means when the bird flies, then I will play the fly sound. So I'm gonna say fly.play. And now if the score increments, then we will say score.play. Now you can hear the sound when I press OK on the keyboard, and when this score increments, if I pass through the gap. So this is, guys, for this tutorial.